So you're probably wondering how I ended up here. Well, for that, I have to go all the way back to the beginning, somewhere around here. Yep, that's me, Pinocchio, and the journey I'm about to face is something I never thought I would face as a puppet. Now, I know this game is old in terms of how quickly generations move in the franchise. But I personally feel like this game was incredibly slept on and forgotten about since it came out at a time when a lot of good games came out. Games like Baldur's Gate 3 as a great example. It also came out at a time when Souls-like games were running rampant, oftentimes staining the image of what makes a Souls-like experience. And I know what you're probably thinking. Man, this guy is here to tell us yet again of another Souls-like game that belongs in the trash. But before you continue to press that dislike button, and then click the back button on Google Chrome, hear me out when I say this game is a testament to how you do a Souls-like, and in some cases took the formula and superseded the creators of the Souls genre. I bring to you my 2025 review of Lies of P, a game that has given me an experience I never thought I would feel again after being burnt out from Soulsborne games, even more so than the Elden Ring DLC did. I've played this game both in New Game Mode and a good chunk of the New Game Plus, and continuing, which is something I never felt like doing in other Souls games. I think the last time I did something of the sort was for Dark Souls 1 back in the Xbox 360 days. This estimated me to around 60 hours of playtime. It's a bit hard to track since I played it on Game Pass before buying it on Steam to support the company. Now, enough chitty chat, let's lock in and get into the review.
Keep going.
You can lean on me if you want.
Now, for those who aren't really familiar with the way I do reviews or how I'll be doing reviews moving forward, it's going to break down in a grade-like format out of 100 points or 100% if you like percentages. 30 points of the score will go towards gameplay, 20 points will go towards the story, 15 points for visual and art, 10 points for audio, 10 points for technical performance, 10 points for innovation and unique features, and then lastly 5 points for player engagement and community. The reason why I do it like this is because I go based off of a level of priority or importance that I feel like RPGs have to go by. So, of course, things like gameplay would require or will have more points than something like the innovation or unique features. Anyways, let's get started with combat and gameplay. So we gotta speak on combat immediately because it's no Souls game without a good combat experience. And let me tell you guys, this game knocks it out of the park with its mechanics and blend of all the From Software games with their own personal sauce on top. Combat is as smooth as butter, and it's enough to be said there. Attacks feel weighty both from you and your opponents. In other words, if it looks like it hurts, it probably will. There is a bit of a learning curve in that the game has puppet-like enemies in it, so their attack patterns are very, very weird to read and understand. Since this game emphasizes parries and an offensive playstyle, you may actually find yourself getting completely decimated until you understand how these enemies attack. For those who really don't know Souls-like games, well, first of all, are you living under a rock? And second, Souls-like games refer to the genre of games that focuses on a hardcore combat experience with bosses that typically require you to learn attack patterns before you can master them. These bosses usually also show you mechanics throughout the game to essentially help you beat the end game stuff, as they will often mix all of what you learn together to test your strength. Now, it may sound bad, but it adds to the progression feedback loop in this game, which is phenomenally done. Similar to Souls games, you have Ergo as a currency, which is basically the souls that you use to level up your character or use it to buy consumables, upgrades for your gear, and a few other things. This type of leveling system has worked for years and is what brought the Souls-like genre up forward because it works way better than games like Skyrim does. If you die, you lose this Ergo and you have to go back to where you died to retrieve them. This game changes up the system in which if you get hit by an enemy on the way back to your lost Ergo, you lose a portion of it and have to fight that enemy that hit you to get back those lost amounts in the pool. If you die, you don't lose all of the Ergo, but you lose so much of it that you would still be slapping yourself silly and cursing the hell out at the game. Speaking of rewards, there are build paths in the game which spices things up without being too complicated. And then there's the weapons, which is the real sauce. Weapons in the game have two parts, handles and the head. They can be disassembled and attached to other weapon parts. For example, having a hammerhead and a spear handle, right? You could combine them and create a new weapon entirely with the swing pattern of that spear. It may sound silly, but it kind of just works in theory, right? The handle determines the swing pattern as well as the scaling of the weapon, whereas the head handles the damage type and its overall damage output. There are tons of weapons already, but this mechanic makes it so many possible combinations that you will fall in love with the system and its experimentation. The game also has different things that you can use to help you in battle, such as tools, consumables, and elemental upgrades, to name a few. Now trust me, this is not your typical firebomb doing only 10 damage from Dark Souls. These consumables hurt and add a ton of power to your character, oftentimes giving you a tremendous edge in combat. Then there is the organ P system, or the P organ system, which adds strategic buffs and mechanics to your character. More on that later. There are also side quests in the game, similar to Dark Souls, where they give you like vague ass clues on where to find something or do something for them and come back. This game changes it up, however, by kind of nudging you in the right direction by essentially putting pictures of the people that you would probably want to see in a given region. That way you're not completely lost or missing out on content unnecessarily. You do get to choose whether to lie or tell the truth, which is a system in this game that this story is driven all around, and so it changes up that formula in that regard. Now, unfortunately, there were not enough of these, and there was not enough impact for them to feel like they matter, I felt, which can be a weak point in the game, to be fair. But the game has a very powerful replayable factor due to the way the story works in that regard, as well as the fact that you can respect your character entirely. There is a very good implementation of a New Game Plus, which again is the first time I've played New Game Plus on a Dark Souls game since Dark Souls 1. I'm not joking when I said this. We gotta talk about the difficulty though, which is where I think the game can be a bit ridiculous at times. Now, I love a good challenge. Anybody who knows me knows I've done Souls level 1 playthroughs without armor, immersive playthroughs, and a full-on fashion Souls type of person where I'm willing to sacrifice all stats for the look of the character. But the difficulty spikes in this game really are all over the place. You'll be doing pretty good for a bit, then suddenly you can't even get past even the mini boss. All right, technique crank, nice. Oh, what the? Okay, come on, let's go. Really doing damage to this guy. What the hell? How did he get so... Yo. Bro, this... Come on! Love the game. Game is great. Fabulous. Thank you. This is a great game. There's also this insane emphasis on parrying, and so if you suck at that, this game will be your nightmare, as you'll be depending on other tools in the game as a measure to make up for that inadequacy. Yeah, I'm ready for you now. Bring it. Come on. Weave. Come on. Block. Oh, that wasn't a parry. Okay. Yeah, weave. Hold this. Come on. Parry. Parry. There we go. Hold this. Bankai! Parry. Come on. Parry. Come on. Bring it, bro. Bang! Reading you like a book. Come on. Let's go. Parry. Parry. Hold this. And this. I'm not finished yet. Now, I'm not saying the game solely revolves around parrying. There's a lot of other things you can do to mitigate or circumvent your ability and skill, or to show off that ability and skill. The beauty is that when you do get it down packed though, such as the parrying and these other mechanics, it is super satisfying to watch things like their weapon breaking on parries, or you going in for that offense when they're staggered. To mitigate this though, there are summons you can use for the bosses if it provides or proves to be too difficult. Now, even with these summons, some of these bosses are so ridiculous that they would one-shot the summon in the first 5 seconds. Like, I really want to know who the hell designed this boss. Second phase, I honestly just want to know who's the douche. Bro. Right? Like, I can't get the timing on that move. It's so fast. It's like a bullet. Come on. Whoa. Oh my gosh. Am I dead? Yo, I'm not dead. I'm not dead. Come on. Come on. Alright. Third one. Oh, who designed this? Oh man, I kid you not. Some of these damn bosses had me ripping my own damn hair out, slamming my desk, and searching Reddit like, how on earth am I supposed to beat this thing? All of it. And don't even get me started on their overuse of second phase bosses. With that being said, overall the combat is superb and snappy. It feels so damn good to fight, because in this game you hit just as hard as your enemies, even the bosses. You're rewarded so well with the different ways you can string together your attacks to break their defense and hit them a massive fatal blow for tons of damage. I still have to dock off points for those weird difficulty spikes, as well as the overuse or overemphasis on one mechanic in the game that could prove impossible for some players, and the overuse of second phase bosses, which can sometimes piss you the hell off when you use all of your resources on the first phase. But I respect the commitment nonetheless, and so for combat and gameplay, it gets 26 out of 30 points. It's just great, man. It's just great. Just have fun with the combat, guys. And don't forget to get good. Story and narrative. Now, the story of this game is very interesting, as it uses the story of Pinocchio as its crux, with a dark fantasy aspect and a cool steampunk / gothic environment that pays homage to Bloodborne, a setting that is often underused. It is a story of a village known as Krat, once a fishing village with 0 forms of technology, in which eventually the discovery of ergo was made. Ergo is a form of energy that was eventually used to build forms of technology and led to the formation of puppet technology, who could perform the mundane tasks of human beings. Krat goes from being a simple fishing village to being an industrialized city with sprawling technology for its time. However, a situation caused the puppets to become frenzied. You, as P, a reference to Pinocchio, are then woken up by an entity likely made of ergo to try to stop the madness, or at the very least get some answers. The story takes massive, and I mean massive, curves while remaining a bit open-ended so that you can discover or try to discern the situation yourself. But there's so much depth to this story. I just don't want to spoil it at all, so I'll leave it very open-ended for you guys to figure out. Oftentimes, the main character of the story is not so much Pinocchio, but it's the city of Krat itself, as you are left to discover and unlock the mysteries behind what exactly happened in its entirety. The plot is very engaging, as it is a linear experience, allowing you to go from start to finish as long as you can kill the damn bosses in your way. While it's not original in its characters, it is original in its concept of Pinocchio in general, since literally no one else has come up with this storyline twist. It's not always about creating a new idea from scratch, sometimes creating an existing one with your own seasoning while still paying homage to the concept goes a very long way. This is a concept we see in current media done poorly, especially in the movie industry. The plot here makes tons of twists that you wouldn't really expect, and plenty of lore to understand the world of P. Characters are pretty well developed here in that each person you meet has a purpose for being there. They all have a specific personality that matches the story, but also matches the characters in the story of Pinocchio in some way, whilst weaving in the premise of lying in each of them. In this world, everyone in some way or form catches themselves in a big lie that eventually creates a problematic situation for them that they try to ignore but have to come to terms with. Memorable characters like Geppetto, essentially your father, Vanini, the man responsible for mass producing puppets, and Antonia, a simple rich woman of Krat, immediately comes to mind in this game. The moment I'm able to remember the names of many of the characters is when the game does them well. Is it groundbreaking? No, but it's more than serviceable and deserves a praise for a company creating their first game. Voice acting is top notch here. All of the characters match their look and appearance and also match the atmosphere of this world. Again, this world is very gritty, dark, and twisted. This game not only sells this in imagery but also in voice delivery. From the Stalker faction, basically freedom fighters that swore to battle the puppets, to the NPCs you meet in Hotel Krat, such as Geppetto and Vanini, they all deliver perfectly with their voices. Everyone sounds distinct from one another. There may not be many NPCs, but this is a great example of quality, not quantity. In terms of world building for this narrative, it sells what it is trying to market here, man. Horrible things have happened here. Disease running rampant, a frenzy of machines sworn to do good, and higher powers behind the scenes pulling the strings. There are people around the world still alive but badly damaged, either from the disease that is spreading, which is slowly turning them into stone, or the anger and frustration from the people fighting back against the puppets. Unfortunately, you, being a puppet, puts a massive target on your back as people automatically categorize you as an enemy before even getting the chance to see that you are on their side. There is betrayal here, lies, anguish, and regret of situations past. It feels like people who have once had great lives are now lost and desperate, looking for a way out by any means necessary. This further adds to the story of you as P, in which you can often choose whether you want to lie or tell the truth. Do you tell the truth at the cost of the feelings of others when you tell them the reality and thus remain as a puppet? Or do you lie to spare those feelings, maybe even encourage a person to go the extra mile at the cost of what you really are? As you lie more, peace slowly becomes more intertwined with humanity and potentially can become human itself. It's a big spin on what the story of Pinocchio is about, and in that lying is not completely bad and horrid thing, more so a reflex often to spare the feelings of the people near us. I mean, yes, lying is very bad, but it shows more of the human side to it. Think of when you were a kid and you lied to your parents off of instinct alone. You wanted to spare their feelings and not get into trouble, hoping that what they didn't know wouldn't hurt them. The game further emphasizes that while we may have a good intention in doing so, it creates a web of situations, often requiring us to fabricate new lies to maintain the one main lie until we are caught. Such is the way of humanity, and it is what pulls the strengths of this game forward. We can't talk about world building without mentioning the locations though. The game takes inspiration from Dark Souls 1, which is an excellent idea, and created Hotel Krat, a central beacon of the entire village. It's as if the hotel was the first grounds for their new civilization and everything was built around it. Everything circles back to Hotel Krat, which creates really neat shortcuts and map designs for you to explore. The beauty of this game is just how different each location is, from the creepy streets of the Elzion Boulevard to the desperation of the cursed cathedral and shantytown outskirts of the junkyard. This game delivers on its promise to be a dark and gritty game. It also pays extreme homage to games like Bloodborne, so Bloodborne lovers will feel at home here. The story was excellent for me as it really hones in on the imagery that it is trying to portray and builds off of a folklore that is fundamentally different from the story's design. This is a story done right by Dark Souls standards, beating even some of the Dark Souls stories by far, and so it gets 18 out of the 20 points for this section. Okay, so graphics. It uses the Unreal Engine, so you can expect solid texture quality here for sure. At this point, everyone is sort of moving to Unreal Engine 5, which in my opinion usually gives what I call the Unreal feeling, where everything sort of looks the same. Now, in this game, it shines on its art direction, and mixed in with the visuals, it's just beautiful to look at. I mean, just drop dead gorgeous, guys. The game takes full advantage of ambient occlusion, shadows, depth of field, excellent use of rasterization to emulate lighting effects on objects, making lights in this game look so amazing and vivid in these like dark streets and shadowy environments. I don't think it uses ray tracing, which I believe is to be a good thing, since it's just better optimization this way and way more budget to put somewhere else. The art style, as stated before, has a steampunk aesthetic and a gothic-like vibe to it. They knocked it out of the park with this artwork, from clothing to the enemy design and environmental structures. The buildings, houses, streets, architecture, and color palette fully matches the story they were trying to convey. The layout of the environment also adds flavor when one moment you are on rooftops and the next moment you are in like old train cars, and then next moment you're in an old industrial factory or even a junkyard. Every environmental location has a story to tell, to the point where you don't even need words a lot of the times to explain the context or events that occurred. The animations are super fluid, so much so that when you miss things like your parries, you can see that you missed them. It doesn't feel cheap or cheated, it just means that you have to work on your timing. Things like weapons hit detections are pixel perfect. If an enemy has his shield on his back and you hit it, it will still act as a shield. The game respects physics very well and further adds to the visual package. With all that being said, guys, this is pretty obvious, but I'm going to give this game's visuals all 15 points. It's just not even the fact that they have good textures, it's the blend of the textures, artwork, and story culminating in a trinity force you don't often see. And this is coming from a studio making its first game. So 15 points. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Audio and sound design. So in terms of sound design, we can start with the soundtrack, which fits the gothic steampunk theme in its entirety. They really emphasize the piano in this game a lot, man. It's crazy. Music design is incredibly important in games, and this doesn't disappoint at all in its crescendos. Here, take a listen.
Oh, Simon. Your sword, like Sacia, swears to protect this tower.
Feel good, 'cause I just don't feel like a girl. Give it to me, baby. Feel alright. I feel good.
Weapon effects are fantastic here too, guys. The attacks feel like you put all of your strength into each strike. The sound of your weapon ripping through flesh or clanking against the metal that the puppets are made of just creates such a satisfying feeling when you hit. Couple that with, combos that you've kind of invent in the game and big damage such as fatal blows or parrying deflects or your special attacks that each weapon has. It's just incredible when it hits. And I must add here that the damage numbers are there, but small enough not to be intrusive and maintain a good visual experience. This is how you do a UI right. Voice acting is well performed of high quality, although the lip sync in this game is intentionally not there due to the fact that it's trying to, not only is it trying to save on a budget, but also it is coming from a folklore tale, which kind of acts on such by not really putting too much emphasis on lip syncing. It does not detract from the game much, as you aren't close enough to these characters like Starfield or Oblivion or Skyrim, so you don't have to really focus in on that. And during the big cutscenes, the lip syncs are on point. Overall, the audio is high quality. Taking off any points here would be nitpicky and pointless, so I'm giving this a complete 10 out of 10 points for audio. Technical performance. And you guys know how I feel about technical performance, man. These games come out so buggy, it's insane. It's as if everyone has taken notes from Skyrim and ran with it. In a Souls game, the most important thing to be functioning next to combat is the technical performance and stability. Since parries are pixel perfect in this game, it is incredibly important that you do not get random frame drops or stutters during a fight, because nothing else will piss you off more than timing it perfectly and a damn frame drop happens and now you are back at the loading screen. Well, it is with great pleasure to tell you that this game runs super smooth. Frames are kept high, rarely have dips in performance, and have a multitude of options to allow for customization for your rig to handle. Now, I run a 4090 paired with a 7800X 3D, so keep that in mind when I discuss this part of the review. However, I do also have comrades or friends that I talk with that have different specs than mine, and that way I can give you guys an understanding of how smooth this game runs across multiple hardwares. I ran the game at 4K on ultra settings, achieving a consistent 220 to 240 FPS with DLSS set to quality. I know some people do not like DLSS, but it is the way of the future, because unfortunately we are currently running to the point where graphics cards are now 600 watts of power and everything is cranked to max, making it almost impossible for us to continue with pure rasterization alone. I know a few friends who are running the game on GPUs such as the 3070 and the AMD 7800 XT, and we're also getting stable frame rates of upwards of 100 FPS at 1440p. I also played the game on the Xbox Series X and achieved a consistent 60 frames per second with a few dips in performance. The game had a few patches to smoothen things out, such as the end game, as well as fixing any potential cheaty feeling moments like parries not working as intended. Hell, they even dropped a few skins for free for our boy P. The loading times in this game are short, as you can expect in this day and age, as long as you are using some type of SSD drive. Please, guys, don't use hard drives for games anymore. There are just too many shaders for them to handle. For technical performance, the game gets 10 points out of 10. Technically, the team here performed extremely well, and in an age where every damn game comes out as buggy as Skyrim, this is a big plus. Innovation and unique features. Now, I have to take a point off in advance for being not only a Souls-like game, but borrowing a ton of things from the From Software franchise. With that being said, it still brings its own level of originality to the table, which makes it far from being a clone. I don't understand what is wrong with these big game reviewers such as IGN and GameSpot nowadays. Some of these guys claimed it to be a copy and paste Souls-like, and I sat there and asked myself, boy, did they even really play the game to play it, or just to quickly draft a review for work? A game like this should be played with a bit of feeling or appreciation for art, since it is very metaphorical in its tone and even in its combat mechanics. One of the unique systems in this game I spoke about earlier is the handle and head system, where each weapon can be disassembled and then swapped around, changing the way of the weapons and how they work. Another system is the Legion arm, which is a Sekiro-like mechanic. However, it is much more intrinsic and heavy on its purpose. These arms can do big things like leave landmines on the floor, launching harpoons at them and then going in for a fatal blow, electric blasts, flamethrowers, and then even an arm that acts like a shield that deflects blows, which helps people a lot who are not too keen on parrying. Another system is the way parries work. Parry enough and you can break the weapon that the enemy is using, drastically reducing their damage and stagger. There is also blocking in this game, but it leaves a gray health in which you can gain back that HP by dealing damage, which incentivizes a more offensive playstyle. The pulse cells, or HP flasks, often known as Estus flasks in the Dark Souls series, when you run out of them, you can deal damage during the fight in order to gain one back. Each time you do this, however, it becomes progressively harder to gain another one. The P organ system I spoke about earlier is a unique system in which P can augment specific perks to himself that alters or drastically change the way combat works. Each perk requires you to pick 2 or more traits to unlock the perk. These traits fundamentally improve specific playstyles you enjoy using and often allow for really cool experimentation. The system, coupled with the level up system, the weapon upgrade and disassembly system, and the Legion arms, makes for a ton of build variety without being overboard and overcomplicated. This is simplicity done right because it allows for enemies to have varying weaknesses and strengths that you can capitalize on, but not giving anyone complete immunity to anything. You will always do good damage, but there's always something that gives you much bigger advantage, thus encouraging experimentation. The game could have played it safe and copy-pasted, but they invented their own systems in the genre, and in many cases I feel like they did it better. One thing I truly feel was done well was the bosses, where each boss had a specific purpose both for gameplay and story for being there. Each boss has their own mechanics designed to test both your skill and your build, often giving you some gut-wrenching moments that are akin to games like Sekiro or Bloodborne. This feeling was lost to me in Dark Souls 2, 3, and even Elden Ring, because while those bosses can be cheesy, such as SS Flash punishing, these bosses almost allow you to heal to keep the fight going. The bosses have a heal mechanic themselves, in that when you deal damage, they are left with some great health that they can gain back over time if you are not aggressive enough. With all these systems in play, it makes an amazing cohesive package that becomes way more unique the more often or the more you play, even if it's a Souls-like experience, which is why I'm giving innovation and unique features 9 out of 10 points. I had to dock a point for not completely being its own thing because it's only fair, but the way they handled that material is just genius at this point, man. And people just need to start taking notes. This is just an excellent way to make combat, to improve on combat, to improve on unique features. Just when I thought that you couldn't do more to improve on this genre of game, it's just, oh man, these guys just like completely said, you know, hold my beer. You know, and that's the thing that kills me, man. It's the fact that games like Dragon Age the Veilguard gets 10s out of 10s for being like mundane and unoriginal or uninspiring, and then you got games like these who really bolster creativity that gets undershadowed or undercutted. It's very strange times now where our review industry just does a poor job at capturing the imagery of these games or what they're trying to convey, because it just doesn't make any sense now, man. And this is why I made this review channel. You know, it's a bit of a rant here, but I made this review channel because I want to invoke the feelings of these games and show you guys that the artistry behind what these guys were trying to portray in these games, because it's not just hacking and slashing these types of things, man. RPGs are about art and about the fundamental core of storylines and stuff like that, and not these weird tropes and politics that people are trying to invoke in these games nowadays. Anyways, 9 out of 10. Let's go on. Player engagement. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this is where the game is not at its very greatest, but you know, it's fine. There is no multiplayer or co-op in this game, so everything is on you. I understand why they did it, so that they can really focus on proper balancing, and making a game multiplayer means that there's more latency. And if you didn't know, latency and parries do not go well together at all. It's like when you're playing Elden Ring or Dark Souls or one of those type of games where you have multiplayer in it and you are the second player, you're trying to parry a boss and they completely whiff it because you're depending on the connection of somebody else. The game can be played offline, which is fantastic. Too many games do this thing where they are single player but require an internet connection to play. I really want to know who the hell comes up with these terrible ideas, because having the game, a single player game on freaking internet connection means you can't play the game anywhere else but your damn house. If you decide you will go in somewhere that doesn't have internet connection at all, you are just absolutely screwed. If you are in a country that does not have proper internet connection, you are absolutely screwed. Well, these guys did not do that. They made the single player game internet connection free, which is becoming few and few nowadays. There are not many community forums either, but I do think this game is slept on and it caused the game to not have as much support from fans. It is also a single player linear experience that came out a while ago, so it's only fair for it to kind of die down, but still has to be addressed. As for content updates, they mentioned that a DLC was supposed to be released at some point, but this is all speculation still, and oftentimes these things can easily change with the way the gaming market works. It's very volatile in this market space, so things oftentimes are said and not done. Nevertheless, I give this section a 2 out of 5 points, which brings us to the conclusion. So we're looking at scores here of gameplay, 26 points, story, 18 points, visual, 15 points, audio, 10 points, technical, 10 points, innovation, 9 points, and player engagement, 2 points, all for a total of 90 out of 100, or a 9 out of 10. If you like percentages, 90%. What can I say here? The game footage literally speaks for itself, and honestly, I've ranted on long enough about this game. Believe it or not, guys, this game was my personal game of the year of 2023. Okay, I know. There were a ton of bangers that came out in 2023, such as Baldur's Gate 3 as a main example. The thing is that game of the year for me usually goes to games that wows me out of nowhere. I knew Baldur's Gate was going to be a masterpiece because, come on, it's Sven Vinke running that show. But Lies of P came out of nowhere and just surprised me beyond measure. It had a wonderful tale for a folklore character that I knew nothing about at all. Took that story and gave a dark and gritty spin to it, something we've been all waiting for how long now, creating a dynamic around a concept that people often view as a cardinal sin without question, which is the lying. It took the extremely fatigued Souls-like genre and owned it. Now, this game is not for everyone. If you're not someone who is interested in Souls-like or is turned off from the style of game, you may not find home here at all. But if you are like me, wondering where the hell is the Bloodborne remaster, this game definitely had filled this niche so well in its own way. From the combat to the unique upgraded mechanics and a simple linear storyline, this game delivered. It performed well on general population of hardware, and boy did it test you in every way. The music was excellent, and if you appreciate the older tunes of the past, you will be right at home here listening to the strings of the guitar and the piano playing lovely melodies at the hotel. Most importantly, you play as Pete, a puppet who rolls into a decaying world, searching for answers as to why all of this is happening, and along that path, through lies and truths, he slowly sees what it's like to become a real boy. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think the Souls-like genre is overdone? Should it remain a difficult and hardcore experience? What folklore would you want to see in a Souls-like game? If you made it to the end of this review, I want to give a sincere thank you for chiming in and listening to my review. These reviews are long, but such is the way of the RPG genre. Would love it if you all could leave a like and subscribe for more updates and content along the way. It'll also greatly help me with this YouTube algorithm so that more people can actually see this video and help support me as well. I really hope to build a nice steady community around this genre where we can discuss topics and speak our own points of views about things and, focus on things great about gaming. Stay safe, you all. RPG Shactics is out.